Hey there, this is Andrew, and I'm here to record the house overview for Sanctum in Dark Tidings. Long overdue. Better get this out before I have Winds of Exchange in my hands. Um, 'Cause then we're going to want to be talking about that, so that'll be cool. But yeah, so let's talk about Sanctum in Dark Tidings. First, so I have 5 questions that I go through at the beginning of any of these videos. The first is, what are the capabilities that we expect to see in the house? Then what's the other house that I would hope to see on a deck next to this if I'm opening a deck for a sealed event? After that, and actually that's maybe even more relevant to think about now that we have sealed alliance as a thing that we could do. So if you were doing Dark Tidings and Sealed Alliance, what 2 houses would you hope to pull together from multiple decks? And then looking at the what's my favorite in-house combo in this set, and then what card would I like to bring back as a legacy in a deck, and lastly, what Maverick would I like to see in a Sanctum Dark Tidings deck. All right, so let's do it. All right, talking about the capabilities, what I expect to see. I expect to see a lot of armor. These are knights. They're bigger creatures. In Dark Tidings, they're actually a little smaller, and Mass Mutation actually, they're a little smaller than they were on average in Coda and Age of Ascension, but they're still substantial, and they have a lot of armor. We expect uh, a lot of protection type mechanics, so taunt happens. We expect there to be some healing, some maybe a little warding even, and then there are some fight abilities here and there. Not maybe as many as you would see in Untamed or Brobnar, but still quite a lot of fight abilities. And whereas in Logos, for example, you expect very few fight abilities. And there's some anti-steal tech because Sanctum are good do-gooders. They really don't like stealing, and so uh, it's a no-no. And they have some great anti-steal tech in this set that I hope comes back. Let's see. There is a lot of bursts in Sanctum. I think their Sanctum burst is often underrated. It's conditional burst usually, but under the right conditions, they can generate a lot of amber very quickly. They have a lot of capture. They have a lot of denial. So in addition to the anti-steal tech, they have can't reap. Can't in Mass Mutation they had can't resolve pips, can't resolve destroyed effects. That kind of went away, but there's some more anti-reap tech. So yeah, pretty strong on the you can't side. And then let's see. Okay, yeah, that's basically. Oh, there's some amber burn, but not a ton. Um, okay, so but I will say, Sanctum in is one of the few houses in Dark Tidings that actually has scaling amber control. You think about early sets, you had uh, too much to protect in shadows that no matter where your opponent was at, you steal them back down to 6. And if you can get that last steal in, or if the key cost is increased, then they don't get to forge. Interdimensional graph that lets them forge, but takes all that's left, bringing them down to 0 after they forge. So um, there are not a lot of options like that in Dark Tidings, but Sanctum has 3 actually that will bring the opponent down to 5. So that's pretty impressive. Okay, so who would I want them with? I think the obvious answer is Saurian, but that's not what I put. I usually do like Sanctum and Saurian together. That just their mechanics blend very well. But I put Unfathomable here just because um, I think that there are some complementary disruption effects where if you can control the board in Sanctum and have some nice control in Unfathomable, then you can really give your opponent a bad time. And Unfathomable actually can fill out the large creature side a little better sometimes even than Sanctum can. Okay, what's the my favorite in-house combo? I think this is a fairly obvious one. It's Urian the Circumspect with shoulder armor because yeah, it's just fun to have a big creature that reaps for a ton of amber. That's an example of that burst I was talking about. And and I think it's cool because shoulder armor was always, it's kind of an interesting card depending on what you put it on, but not that interesting. But with Urian, it becomes a real problem for your opponent. So, and I think that's really good. It breathes new life into that card and a lot of other cards as well. Urian does. All right, if I could pick a legacy, it'd be Grey Rider. Um, Grey Rider is just so cool. Now you have Badgemagus in Sanctum Dark Tidings, which is a very cool card, but it's slow and Grey Rider's fast. And if you could combo them together, that'd be extra awesome. Um, Plus, man, that art in the background is just so cool. And I love the Gandalf reference, I think. All right, so, and then uh, lastly, Maverick. I would take Berry Riches, and this actually goes into why Sanctum and Saurian are such good combo. Um, but being able to capture a ton across creatures or with bring low or just on several creatures, and then Berry Riches to move amber from the creatures to your pool is pretty great. It'd be strong to have that on your Sanctum turn. Although it can be strong to have it on the next turn in Saurian as well. So, okay, on to the actual Sanctum in Dark Tidings cards. Orpheal Seas Chosen and Orpheon Lands Chosen are. Well, Orpheon is a special rarity, and I believe they're tied together in some way. I guess, yeah, they just always appear together. So Orpheal is uncommon, and if you get it, you're going to get Orpheon as well. These are a really cool pairing. Uh, I think unfortunately, you do not have like the continuous art here, although there is a nice uh, parallelism in the art, which is cool. But I like those, where there's two arts together across the cards, or the it's one art across the two cards, and this is not that, but it's still great. Um, and yeah, I think in practice their effects just aren't that great. They're a little underwhelming. So you have Orpheal Seas Chosen. They're both human monks, 3 power. Orpheal Seas Chosen says while the tide is high, it gets fight gain 2 and skirmish, which is important. So that's nice. But then Orpheon Lands Chosen says while the tide is low, it gets +3 armor and reap capture 2. And that is not, in my experience, that hasn't been very powerful because your opponent, if they take the tide, they kill it. Easily. Oftentimes they can kill it easily anyway. If you have a 6 power, it's going to burn through this, and the 6 power creature will live. Um, so I think that Orpheal Seas Chosen is probably the stronger card, but it has to sit out there and stay alive for a turn, and then skirmish fight gain 2, is essentially it's a slightly better Dark Fairy, just because it's 3 instead of 2, but the effect is dependent on having a high tide. So, and it comes with Orpheon. It's not great. Okay, Asia the Inconspicuous is a 3 power human monk. While it's not on the flank, it can't be dealt damage. Interesting, but cards like this that have high survivability just always have to go, well, but how do you turn it into something that your opponent cares about killing? And there are not a lot of obvious answers in this set for how you do that. Maybe some Star Alliance upgrades, but other than that, just not a lot of options. Maybe you capture onto it. I could see that. Um, just haven't seen it be an impactful card. All right. Avenging Aura is an action with an amber. It says for the remainder of the turn, each friendly creature gains Assault X, where X is the number of forged keys your opponent has. And in my experience, just giving all your opponents or giving all your creatures Assault 2 for a turn is not that great. I'd rather have Shield of Justice, where you give them, they can't be dealt damage for the turn. That's actually a much stronger effect, in my opinion. Unless you're dealing with a lot of elusive, and that could happen for sure. But other than that, outside of that case, I just don't think this is that strong. All right, charge. If you have a big hand, this could be good. It's an action with an amber. It's back from Coda. When you play it, for the remainder of the turn, each creature you play gains play, deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. That can be good, but it kind of wants you to have a big hand, which Sanctum certainly doesn't help you with that. All right, Dry the River is an artifact. It's a power. This one's pretty interesting. Each creature gains while the tide is low. This creature cannot reap. So, yeah, this actually can be pretty impactful. Of course, your opponent can just take the tide and reap for 3 chains if that's beneficial to them. So it's not really hard denial of reaping, but imposes a cost to do it. Theoretically, could be strong. In practice, I just haven't seen this win games. Epic Quest, really fun card. Glad this is back from Coda. It's an artifact and quest. When you play it, you archive each friendly knight creature from play, and then it has Omni. If you played 7 or more Sanctum cards this turn, you destroy it and forge a key at no cost. So the goal would be you have a bunch of knights in play, and you use them that turn, and then you play Epic Quest and you archive them, and then you wait and get some more Sanctum cards in your hand, pull the knights out of your archives, spam everything to the board, pop this, get a key for free. Rarely works out, but it is cool when it does, and it's a very earned free key, I would say. Yeah, I'm glad this card exists. I don't think it's super powerful, but I am glad that it exists, and if people can find value from it, then I think that's fantastic. All right, Harmonic Ritual is a rare action. When you play it, you choose a friendly creature. If its left neighbor shares a house with it, you gain 1, and you repeat this effect on that creature. So basically, you start from one creature, and you go to the left, and you count how many creatures are in that same house, and you get that much amber. That's pretty cool. +1. Nope. Not +1. Yep. Just you get as many as there are. Yep. I did the math. All right. Lady Lorena is back from Mass Mutation. It's a 6 power Spirit Knight with 3 armor and taunt, but its taunt also applies to its neighbors. That's pretty cool. People get a little confused about the wording here because they forget that the way taunt is worded is that this creature's neighbors that don't have taunt can't be attacked. So this wording actually totally makes sense. But people sometimes get confused about how that wording is done. It's saying you can't attack that, not you must attack this or anything like that. Okay, so yeah, this is strong. It's a nice big body that protects a lot of stuff. It's good. All right, Lightsmith Clariel is a 5 power angel with 2 armor. Before it fights, you can switch its power and armor for the remainder of the turn. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Haven't seen it be super powerful, but it's a cool idea. There is an evil twin version that has action. You switch another creature's power and armor for the remainder of the turn. That's interesting. I guess if you had a creature with like 5 power and 1 armor, and you could switch it to be a 1/5 and then attack it with a 6, you save your 6. Or if it already had damage, then it would die. So there's some interesting stuff that could happen here. but I don't think it's very strong, actually. And it doesn't even have the armor that the non-evil twin version does. Alright, Lord Golgotha is a 5 power, 2 armor spirit knight that before fight deals 3 damage to each neighbor of the creature Lord Golgotha fights. And this has been in every Sanctum set ever so far. We'll see if it stays in Winds of Exchange. But yeah, there has not been a Sanctum set that doesn't have Lord Golgotha, and I'm glad because Lord Golgotha is awesome and cool. Mad Prophet Gizelhart is back from Mass Mutation. He's a 4 power leader priest with 3 armor. While he's in the center of the battle line, it gains action, fully heal each non-mutant creature, and gain 1 amber for each creature healed this way. Interesting, but I just have not seen it matter ever. So there you go. I like how he seems so small up at the top, but then you look and see the folds of the snake enveloping the whole room, and it's pretty spooky. I assume Gizelhart is the snake, but I could be wrong. Pretty sure. All right. Let's see. Mighty Lance is back for this has also been in every Sanctum set so far. It's an action. When you play it, you deal 3 damage to a creature and 3 damage to a neighbor of that creature. Pretty simple. Numquid the Fair, back from Coda. When you play it, you just 3 power human. When you play it, you destroy an enemy creature and repeat this effect if your opponent still controls more creatures than you. Um, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a nice way to even things up. And yeah, it is interesting. It burns through wards because uh, if your opponent still has more creatures than you, you burn the ward token and then you kill it again. That's pretty fun. Okay, Orb of Wonder is an artifact, an item. It was an anomaly back in Worlds Collide. Then it showed up as an actual card in Mass Mutation, and it has Omni. You destroy the Orb of Wonder, and if you do, you search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This is pretty great and really good with some of those burn your opponent down to 5 tools that we talked about before. So yeah, I'm happy to see this. Okay, Round Table is an artifact with an amber. It's a location, and each friendly night creature gets +1 power and gains taunt. Interesting because in Coda there were some non-Sanctum knights that you could get this with, whereas here there are not. I don't think there are in Dark Tidings. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd be interested to find out if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. So anyway, your night creatures get +1 power and taunt. Yeah, which is interesting. There are a couple of them you might not want to have taunt, but for the most part, that's going to make your other houses pretty happy. Okay, Sanctum Guardian already has taunt. It's a 6 power Spirit Knight that's been in every set but Mass Mutation, every Sanctum set but Mass Mutation. 6 power Spirit Knight with 1 armor and taunt, and it has Fight Reap. Swap it with another friendly creature in your battle line. Seraphic Armor is an upgrade with an amber that it started in AOA, and it gives a creature +1 armor. And when you play it, you fully heal the creature. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Especially, I think in AOA it was better because you had Merrick the Marked, and it could be really good with Merrick, but here, much less so. Okay, SGS Illuminator is the Sanctum ship. It's an artifact and ship. You exhaust it or you can action it to exhaust up to 4 friendly Sanctum creatures, and for each creature exhausted this way, you stun and exalt a creature. That's actually pretty interesting and potentially good. Very interesting effect. I've never seen it be used very effectively, but um, would be cool to pull off a great Illuminator turn. Okay, the Corpulent Collector. This one's really interesting. It's a 7 power human. When you play it, you capture all your opponents. It captures all your opponent's amber, and then you deal 1 damage to it for each amber on it. So if your opponent has 6 amber, capture 6, deal 6 damage to Corpulent Collector. There's some interesting things you can do with this. Oh, and of course, this reminds me. The reason, oh, I really should have said that the card that you want with Sanctum in Dark Tidings is Whirlpool, because you do these types of capture things, and then you give the creature to your opponent, and then kill it. Yeah, it can be pretty great. Anyway, it's pretty cool. And I will say, a friend of mine has a combo in a deck that has it's Whirlpool, so you're giving a creature to your opponent at the end of your turn, and it has Hadroth's Wall. I think even 2 copies maybe. Anyway, Hadroth's Wall boosts the power of your flank creature. So when you play Corpulent Collector on the flank, it can actually capture more than 7 and stay alive. So you capture 7 or more with it staying alive, and then when it goes over to your opponent does not have Hadroth's Wall, its power drops and it dies, and you get the amber, which is pretty cool. So that's a fun combo, but it's a 3-card combo, so you're getting into sketchy territory there for competition anyway. All right, here we're into some of that anti-steal tech. Vault Keeper is a 4-power Spirit Knight with 1 armor that just says your amber can't be stolen. That's a pretty strong effect, and it's been in every Sanctum set. Trial by Water is new in Dark Tidings. It's an action with an amber. When you play it, you reset the tide, so it would go neutral. And then until the start of your next turn, players cannot raise the tide. So it stays neutral. Interesting, but only really interesting within the set. It just isn't very good against other sets. Doesn't matter. Okay, Alms Master is a 4-power human knight with 1 armor, has deploy, and it has taunt, and when you play it, each of its neighbors captures 1. That's interesting, but not crazy interesting. It just does a little. The Evil Twin version is also 4-power human knight with 1 armor and deploy, but it does not have taunt, and instead of that play effect, each of its neighbors gains destroyed steal 1. I think I actually like that a little better. Okay, Barrister Joya is back from AOA and is a 5-power human knight with 1 armor that says enemy creatures cannot reap. That's pretty strong. I like it. Bring Low is an action with an amber. It enhances a capture somewhere, and when you play it, you capture all but 5 of your opponent's amber, distributed among any number of friendly creatures. So this is one of those drop your opponent from 5 down to 5. And I like this one because it's unconditional, right? If your opponent is on 6, you still bring them down to 5. Yeah, this is good and strong. I like it. Doorstep to Heaven, also unconditionally bring them down to 5. It's an action with an amber. Each player with 6 or more loses all but 5 of it. So this can hurt you, but you're in control of whether you play it, and it's a really strong effect. And this was not in Mass Mutation, but it's been in every other Sanctum set. First or Last is an action. When you play it, you choose to either purge each creature with the highest power or purge each creature with the lowest power. And I really like this. I think this is often strong because it's pretty often that you get into a situation where you don't have both the highest and lowest power creature. So usually you can do something good with this. All right, Gatekeeper is a 5-power Spirit Knight with 1 armor. This is another drop your opponent to 5, but this one they have to have 7 or more. So when you play it, if your opponent has 7 or more, you capture all but 5 of it. So yeah, another great bring them to 5 effect. It's just if they hit right at 6, you can't do it. And this was not a Mass Mutation, so it is interesting. Like, there are a lot of ways that I think Mass Mutation's Sanctum is a little stronger. It's definitely stronger on the Nope effects, but Dark Tidings Sanctum has more, bring your opponent to 5, which is pretty great. So more scaling amber control. Okay. Gorm of Om is an artifact and item. We've been in the uncommons for a little while now. It has Omni, you destroy it, and destroy an artifact. This has been in every Sanctum set. It's a really nice card. I really appreciate it as artifact control because it sits around until you need it. And so oftentimes, most artifact control cards are actions or creatures, and so you need to play them, at the moment um, that there's already an artifact that you want to deal with. But here, you can kind of let it sit out there until the time comes that they play the artifact you're worried about, and then boom, you got it. So I really like Gorm of Om for that reason. And and you can play it, even if they have like an anti-creature artifact or something, you can still play this, which is nice. Okay, Grey Augur is a 3-power human monk with 1 armor. Each of its neighbors gains fight gain 1. Okay, that's interesting. The Evil Twin version is same stats, but gives the neighbors Reap, gain 1, and exalt this creature instead. So, okay, that's interesting. It's fine. Turns them into Questor Jarda, I guess. Here's Hadroth's Wall. It's back from AOA. It's an artifact and item. It gives each friendly flank creature +2 power. Very interesting. Yeah, this is a fun one and can be really nice with some of those low power control creatures like a Kaup or Fuguru, where you're boosting it now to 4 or 3, making it much harder to deal with. Hold Fast is a 6-power beast. After one of its neighbors is dealt damage, you ready it. Yeah, that's solid. Not, in my experience, not super interesting, but kind of cool. The only problem is actually oftentimes it ends up getting that effect during my opponent's turn, and then it's not doing much. Okay, Honor or Glory is an action. When you play it, you choose to either deal 3 damage to each flank creature or to each creature not on a flank. That's fun. Nice choice there. Wish it had an amber. And then Light Everlasting is an action with an amber. When you play it, you play a Sanctum creature from your discard pile anywhere in your battle line. I wish there were more super high impact Sanctum creatures to use this on, but I think Gatekeeper can be a pretty good option if you get this in a deck with that. Okay, Radiant Truth is an action with an amber. When you play it, you stun each enemy creature that's not on a flank. That's very good. And that's been in every Sanctum set. Okay. It's interesting. I'm trying to think if there are cards in other houses that have been in 4 sets. Because like Mimicry and Wild Wormhole, they, for example, were in every set up through Worlds Collide, but then they were not in Mass Mutation. So, are there cards that have been in 4 sets? I'm not sure. Okay, Red Hand Registry is an artifact with an amber. It's a law, and it's new in Dark Tidings, and this is some of that great anti-steal tech. It says, after amber is stolen from you, your opponent skips the Forge a Key step during their next turn. This is really good. This is a great artifact. Doesn't stop them from stealing, but it says you're just going to skip Forging a Key. That's super cool. I love it. All right, Shoulder Armor was not in AOA, but it's been in every other Sanctum set. It's an upgrade with an amber. It says while this creature is on a flank, it gets +2 armor and +2 power. Also good for protecting, low power control creatures, but really good with Urian, as we'll see later. Badge Magus is a 4-power human knight. Wish it had armor. Has deploy, and after it fights, you can ready and fight with each of its neighbors one at a time. So that's a really strong effect. I just wish that Badge Magus herself had more survivability and was faster. Okay, Bulwark is a 4-power mutant knight with 1 armor, back from mass mutation, has assault 2, and gives its neighbors assault 2. That can actually be really nice. That's enough usually to deal with elusives. Having like 1 Bulwark, getting it down, getting a couple fights in. Usually you can deal with elusives that way. Cleansing Wave is an action. When you play it, you heal 1 damage from each creature and gain 1 amber for each creature healed this way. That can be a huge burst, especially because a lot of Sanctum creatures have enough survivability that you often have a bunch of creatures with a little bit of damage and can pop this. General Salvador is a 4-power human knight with 2 armor and 2 capture icons. That's fine. Grand Melee is an action. When you play it, you destroy each creature that does not share a house with at least one of its neighbors. Yeah, that's an interesting board wipe. I like it. Hammergram is an action. When you play it, you deal 3 damage to a creature and stun it. It's fine. I wish I had an amber. Heal or Harm is an action. When you play it, you choose to either fully heal a creature and gain an amber, or ready and fight with a friendly creature. Yeah, this is fine. It's fine. I think, the ready and fight feels good, but the fully heal and gain 1, if you compare it to like a Vigor or Healing Blast, just a little sad on the amber situation. Larry of the Lake is a 3-power human knight that says while the tide is high, each friendly creature gets +2 armor. That can be really strong, potentially, especially if you combo with like a Urian, but just in general, that can be really nice. The problem is your opponent can just take the tide on their turn, take away all your amber, and murder your stuff. Okay, the Evil Twin version says that while the tide is high, Larry of the Lake itself gets +5 armor. That's pretty underwhelming. Okay, Marshal Ewer is a 4-power Spirit Knight with 2 armor. When it is played or when it fights, you raise the tide. It's a nice tide effect, I guess. I like the art, but I think it's just okay. Seneschal Sargassa is very interesting. It's a 6-power Spirit Knight with 2 armor. It says after a player raises the tide, a creature they control captures 2 from their opponent. That's pretty cool. The weird part is, if your opponent just lets you keep the tide, you'll never get this effect, and then you just have a 6-power 2 armor body. So this is really interesting within Dark Tidings matches. It can be used against you. A lot of interesting stuff there. But I find in matches that don't include, that aren't both Dark Tidings, this card ends up kind of being almost blank. And the Evil Twin version has no armor, but says after a player raises the tide, Seneschal Sargassa itself captures 2 from your opponent. Interesting. It does not give it doesn't give your opponent the ability to capture at all. It's doing all the capturing every time the tide changes. So that's kind of cool. But again, if you're not in a 2 Dark Tidings match, the tide isn't getting raised a bunch. It can be a little underwhelming. All right, now we have Sir Bever, who is a 1-power alien knight with 5 armor. I love Sir Bever. He's pretty cool. A lot of armor, not a lot of damage. Yeah, he's really fun. Has taunt, so yeah, it's just that's very interesting. Often not enough to like change the game, but I really like Sir Bever as a card, and I hope that he comes back in other sets. Okay, then you have the Evil Twin version, who doesn't have taunt but does have poison, and having a 1-power 5 armor with poison, that's actually pretty cool. I like it. Oh, I guess he's in a helmet. Yeah. Yep. He's inside a helmet. So funny. like a hermit crab. All right. Shifting Battlefield is an action with an amber that says play move a friendly creature anywhere in your battlefield, in your battle line, and that creature captures one. The capture one's interesting. Usually the move doesn't matter, but hey, if it does, that'd be cool. So I don't mind this card. I think it's fine. Staunch Knight is back from Coda. It's a 4-power human knight with 2 armor that gets +2 power while it's on a flank. It is really funny to me, though, to have this in the same set as Seneschal Sargassa, because Seneschal Sargassa is already 6 power, no matter whether it's on a flank or not, and has a good effect, so, or an interesting effect anyway. So kind of makes Staunch Knight just seem very pointless, in my opinion. I really don't know what Staunch Knight's deal is. Yeah. Okay, Strange Ordination. Like Virtuous works from Coda, but Dark Tidingsified. So this is an action with 3 amber on it, and it says play only if the tide is high. That's fine, but Virtuous Works is better. I don't know why we have to get a worse card here. It is in common, so that's cool. Is Virtuous Works common? I actually don't know. Okay, Virtuous Works is uncommon. So this is going to come. Strange Ordination is going to come in more often, but that's kind of a gnarly downside. I don't know. Okay. Taxing Journey is an action with an amber. When you play it, a friendly creature captures an amber, and each of its neighbors that shares a house with it also captures an amber. Yeah, that's fun. That's good. That's good capture potentially. Capture 3, get an amber. That's better than oh my goodness. What's it called? Wow. Nope, 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 nope. Wow. I can't think of it. What's the one that has the you shall wear pants? Thou shalt wear pants. Oh no. Sad. Sad. I really should know. Wear pants. Terms of redress. That's what it is. Thank you. Thank you, Archon Arcana. All right. And then lastly, we have Urian the Circumspect, who's a 3-power human knight with 1 armor. When it reaps, it gains amber equal to its armor. So that's pretty great because right out the gate, you have reap gain 1 in a 3-power 1 armor creature, which is that's pretty okay. And then add on other effects that might add to the armor. Obviously, in Sanctum, you have Larry of the Lake and shoulder armor, but potentially you have cards, especially in Star Alliance, that can combo really well with this, like Light of the Archons and other upgrades. Even Shieldulator just adds armor. So you have ways to beef it up with armor and then reap and get a ton of amber. So that's pretty cool. I like it. And it has an evil twin version, which says reap your opponent loses amber equal to its armor. That's cool. I like that. I like the non-evil twin version better. I think gaining amber is usually better than destroying amber, because you can always gain amber, but if your opponent has no amber, you can't destroy it. But I could see this being a good option sometimes. Yeah, so that's that. That is Sanctum in Dark Tidings. Hope you enjoyed. Hope it, it's interesting. Like Dark Tidings, we have not seen it be great very often. It kind of has a bad reputation, but there are some really good things in there, and I think especially in Sanctum, you have that scaling amber control, a lot of options for it that maybe wouldn't be even in other sets, right? Mass Mutation Sanctum doesn't have nearly as many of those options. So yeah, so and you know, I think even if you're not finding like a super competitive deck here, really do consider that Dark Tidings Sealed is quite fun, and Sanctum I think has a pretty if you open a Sanctum deck in uh, Dark Tidings Sealed, usually you're pretty happy because they just have a lot of great options. So anyway, um, I hope that gets you a little excited about it. I'm excited to see what they do with Sanctum in Winds of Exchange. Of course, really looking forward to that. And anyway, hope this gets you excited to get out there and forge some keys.